You're listening to the MindPod Network. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by The Yoga of Strength, a hero's journey into the heart of reality. It's a new book by Andrew Mark Rowe, and it's available April 19th wherever books are sold. It's all happening. 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 Hello, friends. Welcome to the podcast, episode 135 of It's All Happening with Zach Leary. That's me. I'm your host. And that was music from the guests for this episode of the podcast, Deva Premal and Miten. And that was their now iconic, soul-stirring version of the Gayatri mantra. They are such special people, and Deva and Miten are truly a global phenomenon. They travel the globe sharing sacred devotional music that's pretty much infused with mantras. They do sing some English, but it's devotional music wrapped in a container of Sanskrit mantras, Sikh mantras, Native American mantras, all sorts of, calls to the divine. And they have been doing it for over 25 years, and because of their passion and their devotion and their authenticity and their relentless touring schedule, they have broken down barriers and reached people in every corner of this planet of ours, sharing their gift. And they're truly inspirational people, on stage and off. And before we get into the podcast, I'll tell you a little bit more about Deva and Miten. So thrilled to have them on the show. We've been trying for a while, and it finally happened. Excellent. In 2011, a very important and now prophetic book came out called The Filter Bubble: How the New Personalized Web is Changing What We Read and How We Think, by Eli Pariser. Now, again, this book came out in 2011, and the premise of it is that the internet has been taken over by the need for personalization, by capturing your behavior and your data and your interests and delivering it in an algorithm that comes in the form of content or marketing, products, events that it thinks you want to see, right? And the idea is it creates echo chambers. It creates extreme factions of the right or the left, or of your spiritual community or your atheist community, or of veganism, or whatever it is you're into, without really seeing how the other side is thinking, right? Fast forward 8 years into 2019, it would be naive to say that our internet platforms and the ecosystems we inhabit within them are any healthier or any better than what Eli warned us about in 2011. The personalization engine that affects the open graph that powers Facebook and things like Twitter, it is the sum result of your behavior, what you click on, what you like, what you search for, what kind of videos you watch, what kind of music you listen to, what kind of groups you belong to, events you are interested in, and so on and so forth, and creates a very, very sophisticated algorithm that creates an environment that is made just for you, right? And on one hand, sure, that sounds great, right? I wouldn't want to log on to Facebook and see, have my newsfeed cluttered with pro-Trump chatter and, far-right, ideologies or whatever, things that I just don't happen to resonate with, obviously, right? But that said, how the narrative is created and disseminated as a result of these technologies that are powering the internet is something that we, the people, we, the end user, can disrupt and can have influence over. And I think that comes in two parts. There is the element of personal responsibility, disrupting the algorithm, jumping into, the fray of the things that are posted and the stories that are being presented to us, and questioning the sources and looking at the other points of view, and not posting links from, websites that have no credibility or whatever, et cetera, and not falling into the trap of polarization. There's certainly the personal responsibility aspect. That's one end of the disruption model. The second end is finding ways to gather together to demand accountability from these platforms, right? To not let, the people running Facebook and Twitter and whatever, to have complete authoritarian control over the content that we see, share, and thus believe, right? We have to rise up and hold these people accountable. Roger McNamee did a great job at starting the conversation with his book Zucked about questioning, the Facebook catastrophe, and he plays this great game of not using any Google products, et cetera. But I think it goes deeper than that. I think we have to bring the conversation out into the forefront, or else, this mass extreme polarization and, culture of misinformation is going to continue. And as John Perry Barlow always said, information does want to be free, right? But part of its freedom comes from responsibility. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by The Yoga of Strength, a fable, book one of the Yoga trilogy by Andrew Mark Rowe. It's a hero's journey into the heart of reality. The Yoga of Strength is the story of Andrew Cardiff, a longtime squire on the cusp of elevation to knighthood within the Yellow Order of the Kingdom of Tharain. There is only one issue. He is an abject coward enslaved to his baser instincts. Thrust into a world of magic and treachery, Andrew tumbles along a path that threatens devastation at every turn. This unlikely hero must plumb the depths of his soul in search of courage and strength that have always eluded him. Around him, the world is crumbling. Will Andrew discover his answers at the center of the mystery before it's too late? Well, there's only one way to find that out, right? You've got to read the book. And I've read it, and Andrew Mark Rowe does a fantastic job, really a brilliant job of crafting this world that is part Game of Thrones, part Bhagavad Gita, and takes you into, a quest for enlightenment while also using yogic philosophy and dragons in Greek and Hindu and Roman and Celtic mythological symbols and deities to weave the plot together to expose its teachings and also, the moral compass that lies within our protagonist. So the Yoga of Strength is available April 19th, wherever books are sold. Pick up your copy, you can pre-order it. You'll be glad you did. The Yoga of Strength. So much gratitude to Andrew for sponsoring these episodes of the podcast. So let's get into it with Deva Premal and Miten, the musical force partnership phenomenon that together with Manos, their brilliant, charismatic, Nepalese flutist, when they, as you know, if listeners of this show know, I grew up a Grateful Dead fan, and for anybody who understands the Grateful Dead experience, it was very much based on creating a communal sense of participation in magic that dissolved the boundaries, the traditional boundaries of performer and audience. And what Deva and Miten and Manos and their bandmates do is very similar in that it creates a communal sense of celebration and collective dialogue that transcends and co-creates into something very, very extraordinary. So I encourage you to check it out live if you haven't in person, and check out what they've been doing for over 25 years. And I hope you enjoy this podcast and can pick up a little bit on how special they are. Enjoy. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you for doing this. It's beautiful to be with you guys. Thank you. Here we are in beautiful Malibu. So,
our second home.
Your second home. Well, you guys really, your home is the world, pretty much, huh?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I mean, not totally, but...
Well, more or less. We haven't lived anywhere longer than 6 months in our 28 years together.
And that was 25 years ago.
So we like to move. We like to keep fluid. It's like fluid experience, with the music.
Well, let's talk about that, about keeping fluid and keeping moving and doing what you guys do around the world like that. I see you guys as these amazing, musicians and keepers of the light and spirit, but doing it globally and traveling like that, what is it about that you feel called to do it that way?
It just unfolded naturally that way. And I remember thinking when I came out of high school, finished school, I remember having this fleeting thought of how beautiful it would be to have a partner that I could live, work, and travel with. So I must have already felt like a big calling to travel. I always liked to travel, and it seemed so beautiful to travel, like, wow, what an amazing thing to get to see all these places. And I still feel that way after 28 years of traveling. Yeah. It doesn't get old for me. I just really love arriving. I love leaving. It feels like a mini death each time that we leave a place, because one time I heard that when we die, that everything kind of withdraws from in the body, like the energy. There's a whole, with the elements, and there's a whole thing about it. But how I see it is that you kind of withdraw into the center of your body, and then you leave the body, and you come out. Your energy goes out of the limbs, and and that's kind of how I see when I pack up. I feel like the room, like just kind of concentrates into these suitcases.
But you get to be reborn again in the next place.
And but it's such a great letting go, and non-attachment, and it's not hard. We don't ever feel difficult. Usually, I've never felt difficult to leave somewhere. And in all these 28 years of traveling, I think there's been 2 nights that we both can remember where we felt homeless, or 3 nights where we felt like, you know, this is not really where we would really want to be right this moment, you know. But a big thing is because we are together, you know, we are creating this home bubble where we are together anyway.
It wasn't really a plan. It just happened, and we get to a hotel, and Deva makes our little altar, puts the altar up, and that's our home. And then, you know, that's how it works. So you're never homeless apart from 2 days in 30 years. But you do feel home everywhere. You have to start, well, you know, for me it was like I started to see, oh, wait a minute, I can either look on myself as homeless or that everywhere is home.
What have you guys, through these 26 years, you said it's been, being on the road this way, doing what you do, how has your relationship worked its way into that? What have you learned about each other? And like, you're learning as you're going, while also having this other parallel path going, which is the music and showing up on time for gigs, or showing up late for gigs, either way. But, you know, doing that, and then, so how's the relationship grown and worked itself out in this?
Tell me.
I think it's kind of gone beyond relationship. I think it's just a really deep friendship, a sexual partner and a deep friend. That's great, man. I don't, you know, that's enough for me. That's really enough. I've got the best friend I could imagine. And we sleep together every night, you know, and we sing together, and we travel together. I didn't know. I didn't think this was possible. I didn't think that I'd be 70-something and, you know, I'd still be enjoying life like this, you know. And maybe it was the heart operation, but I think that when we got together in Osho's ashram, you know, and that was, I'm not going to do a big talk about this, and they was going, oh, don't talk about the ashram. But I do just have to say, you know, that Osho created a community, a non-traditionalist as he was. He purposely put the men and the women together in the ashram. It wasn't separate. And he worked with how do you actually transform our basic energy, our sexual energy, our fear of survival, that whole part of us that drives us. How do you get that to raise? How do you get that to rise, you know? And so he felt like we have to start there. If we don't acknowledge that, you know, then where do we go? How do we deal with anything? It has to be there. So on the outskirts of our community, it might have looked like a big party going on, but we were in a huge tantric experiment, and that's where we met. We didn't meet in a conventional place. We met in a place that accepted that spiritual journey was the main priority. That was how we valued each other's journey. It wasn't about, you can't do that because you're with me. That wasn't a concept. It was a whole different way of living. And that's how we live, and that's what we've always done. So the relationship was long gone. I just feel like, you know, and don't forget, we're very different in age. We're 23 years different. So when we met, Deva was just out of her teens. She was 20. And so she was like open to all this amazing life. She'd been living in the ashram. She was a meditator. She'd learning and studying shiatsu and massage, craniosacral therapy. She was a healer, you know. And in the end, instead of doing it with her hands, after we got together, she found that she could do it with her voice.
Did you grow up singing?
No, not really. I mean, I grew up in a musical family, and I grew up chanting the Gayatri Mantra every night. You know, like that was singing. And then I remember asking my mom always, whether I could sing myself to sleep afterwards. Somehow I must have had some. But I grew up in a I went to musically oriented school with a focus on music, a little bit of a focus on music, and sang there because we had to, and it wasn't like something I was especially drawn to, and they always said I had good potential, you know. But everybody was not like it. There was really no sign of it. I don't think there was. Everybody saw that I was musical. I played violin, so I had a good.
It's a bit like now, isn't it?
I had a good. You mean everyone says good potential, totally. And for me, the big unfolding happened when the mantras came back into my life. After I'd already been with Miten for 7 years, traveling, singing, and then through the mantras, then the voice opened and entered this space that I didn't know before.
So that the power of mantra, I mean, you can certainly relate it to your personal experience, but how is it that the mantras entering your life are able to, you know, take your voice to another level? And let's talk about the power of mantra a little bit. I mean, this is a great doorway in, and that you can personalize it a little bit, but also, you know, outside of yourself, about the power of mantra. What is it about the quality? I don't mean in just Sanskrit, I mean in all these different traditions that you guys bring together. How does it do its thing?
I feel all of us humans, I think we all love prayer. You know, we all, maybe not everybody, but prayer is a big part in every religion and
every indigenous culture or something.
And prayer is some way to connect with the divine, with some unknown being, whatever we want to call it. Everybody has different names for different concepts, but we like that connection, and prayer is a form of connection. And mantra is, for me, mantra is prayer. Actually, in a way, a wordless prayer, because it's in a language that I don't actually understand. I don't speak Sanskrit.
Right.
You know, I know I can learn what the words mean. You know, and I now I've got a basic understanding of that. But really, I take somebody's, you know, word for it, you know.
Right.
And so right. Basically it's just me singing, chanting these sounds that that feel good, you know,
Right.
Sounds that make me feel good, sounds that create joy and bliss in me and bring me to a space of peace and silence and I love that there are no words in this prayer, you know. Like, of course we can translate the mantras as a please Shiva, you know, come into my life and bless me, or you can sing the mantra with wow Shiva, wow, thank you, or just Shiva, because actually there's no thank you or please in the mantra anyway, you know, that gets added somehow by the translation mostly.
Right.
So I love, and that's why it's so universal. That's why so many people feel drawn to it. We travel in 40 countries, I think, and people come and want to chant this because they feel one in it. You know, it's beyond all the Actually, it's beyond all religions and ideas and concepts. It's a direct, cellular, sound, medicinal connection to the divine.
And
direct.
And from your perspective, Miten, I mean, you know, you have a rock and roll, you know, it's in your blood, and you know, you have, you know, a rock and roll background. And so, where did the two meet for you and arrive at this place?
This is amazing, because I'm not in any way scientific, you know, and when Deva speaks about it, I totally resonate with him. But I have to have my own understanding, you know, my own feeling about it, because like it is mysterious.
Yes.
And I kind of look on it now as, you know, I like to call them refined sound bites, and I like to put myself back in a golden age in India, say 5,000 years ago, when people with a certain intelligence were experimenting with how sound affects us, how sound affects the body, and they were meticulous in their exploration, and they started to realize, well, this sound, this happens, and if this sound and that sound go together, what happens, and how many times do you have to say it? And, so the exploration goes like that, and that was your first mantra. And somehow what I feel is that they're like, they're just entities, energetic entities of scientific exploration, that we can say that they got to the point, they say, if you chant this, it will help you remove energetic blocks from your path. That's the Ganesh mantra. Now, the only way you're going to know if that's true or not is to do it, is to chant it, or else what?
Exactly. Yeah.
And so what we found is that it's something. There's a foundation after all these years now of chanting them. There's you rub the bottle or the lamp, and the genie comes out. And so as soon as we begin to play, the genie's out, whether it's the Gayatri, whatever mantra, and then you just hold on and see where it wants to go.
Yeah, and I find there's this quality within the practice of singing mantra, or even the recitation, if it's not musical, like it works in spite of myself.
Yes.
Like I'm not a very disciplined person. Like doing spiritual practice is something I had to learn that did not come natural for me, And no matter what's going on in my life, in my immediate field, which is, if it's self-obsession, petty or whatever it is, it works in spite of me. Like, it's the one thing I do daily, and no matter where I'm at, what's going on in my life, like it'll break, this field of my, thinking thing, and take me to some place
that's
of healing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's why we can do the traveling, because we're in touch with that all the time. It's not that we're singing emotional songs or sexually exciting songs or dance songs or whatever, or whatever songs, folk songs or whatever. It's beyond the emotional field. That's where we hang out when we get to play. So what happens is we access that deeper part of ourselves that's more sensitive, more ready to cry, more ready to feel, more ready to be touched. It's underneath our day-to-day activities, and the mantras have a way of accessing that for all of us. So we start to feel like, oh, Jesus, that's nice. And then before you know it, your 2 or 3 hours are gone, and you haven't thought of stress. You've been out of stress. I think that's the thing that happens mostly. It's not that we can give, it's what gets taken away.
Right.
And what gets taken away is a sense of stress. So all we're left with is this feeling of love, really, and connection and compassion,
Is there something to be said, some power within, this practice of within the ancient aspect of it? Sanatan Kaur once told me that part of when you're chanting these mantras is you're continuing this resonance of the person who started chanting it before you, the person before that, the person before that, and you're continuing this chain of recitation of the mantra that's thousands of years old now. I mean, is there something to that, you think, Deva?
I'm sure I love the idea, it feels like it's still swirling around the planet, because these sound vibrations, they don't disappear. They're not gonna dissolve. Nothing can go away. Nothing can vanish. Everything stays So that vibration is still here. Personally, I'm just not so tuned in that way. I don't feel. I can't say I really feel it. I can only feel my little kind of personal experience. And go by that.
But it's a nice feeling to understand that that the Gayatri has gone back,
of
and
course,
from the time you sing it, it continues.
I always see that we tune into this river of this sound. That the sound river is already going, and we're tuning into this river. That's still happening, and it's been happening for thousands of years, and it's happening right now, and we're all, going and like joining the river.
And are you taking people into the river with you? Do you see it like that?
Yeah, definitely, yeah. We're creating also the river every evening. Not creating, but we are all entering it together when we come together in concerts and stuff.
And does it differ when you are there some nights where you feel like you're doing it more for yourself, and there's some nights where you're in service and you're doing it for others, or do you not see it that way? Is it just one thing?
Doing it for myself, man. Just holding on, and just being able to do that every night is a miracle. Every night is a miracle. As soon as Deva begins singing, as soon as the people start to open their voices, it's just So yeah, I need that. I do need it, and I like to sing alone too. I do like. I like to connect with that part of myself, and to do it in a kind of spiritual, sacred kind of environment where the temple contains laughter and the temple contains tears. All is welcome,
And no matter where you are, the temple is wherever you're gathered.
Well, we have a responsibility to create a temple wherever we play, and I don't mean us. I mean everybody who comes. Everybody is responsible for the evening. So it's not a situation where you can slouch. Either you can hang out and enjoy it, but if everybody's involved in some way, that's how it is. So even if we played in some pretty divey places sometimes, but by the time the music starts, we're just in the temple again,
Yeah, I've always had this, I was telling you before when we were having lunch, I grew up a Grateful Dead fan, and to this day, there's these old dingy venues that the Grateful Dead used to play. There's a few of them still going, and then I go to them and I'm like, oh, there's something about this place will always be a temple, even if there's a basketball game going on in it. And I feel like when I go to the Wilshire Ebel here in Los Angeles, I can't separate it from evenings with you guys. Yeah, I mean, do you, when you go, traveling the way you do, when you arrive at some places, when you come back to them, you're like,
a little bit, yeah. Or sometimes oh no, we forgot about that.
But back to the people and the audience, the relationship with the audience and the mantra. Really wanted to explore this because you guys, overall, you play to large audiences, especially for this type of music, and you're unique amongst other people who sing mantra music, and that you play to large audiences in the way that you do. Well, first, it's a multi-part kind of exploration, but let's start. What's the relationship with the audience for you, Deva?
It's totally a personal love connection. It's a reunion each time. I feel like we basically, even if somebody comes for the first time, usually it feels like a reunion. Like it's like they've already listened to the music so much. And of course, it's also beautiful. I meet lots of people who say, oh, somebody brought me. I didn't know what I was coming to, and I didn't know this was possible, So many times I spend after the concert, meeting people and hearing stories and being totally humbled and blown away by people, what they share, and so many times we say it's changed my life, it's saved my life, you know, like it's often these huge statements and they come with tears in their eyes, and I feel so grateful that I can be part of this journey with them, or this change, part of this change with them. So yeah, it feels very warm and friendly, and the same like if we meet somebody in the airport, or somebody who says, "Oh, I love your music," it always feels like a friend, you know. It's like we have a hug, and we're like it's such a beautiful community, you know, that we're part of.
So there's not too much separation. We're all doing this together.
No. Yeah.
And earlier you were saying, you know, with people, not everybody, but you know, especially people who come to your shows, or as we were talking about indigenous cultures, we have this need to connect with the divine in prayer of some form. But why do you think people, what are they looking for when they sing your music and play with you? What do you think they're looking for?
I think we've already talked about that. It's that sense of connection, sense of peace, you know, inner peace, and community, and beautiful sounds, beautiful music. We all love beautiful, you know, sounds, you know.
And the power of it when you have however many hundreds or thousands of people, when they sing the mantra back together, it's a powerful experience, huh?
The way it is, Zach, it's like it's a kind of cosmic circle in the concert, and the circle gets complete when we come on the stage. That the musicians complete the circle,
right? And
then that's how it feels. It just feels like now we're in it together. Let's see where we go. We've got some plans, we've got some vague structures, but we're getting more. This band now is becoming more like the Dead than the other band. We're loose now. I've got the electric guitar. We've started like that track.
Yeah,
that goes on for a long, open period, and
go on for.
Yeah, I think now we're in a really good place with this band, and because I would like to see the audiences on their feet dancing and singing Om Tali Tutali and Gati Gati. You know, it's nice that we all sit down, but now there's a momentum, and I've got a feeling if we go there, it could be so nice that we start moving our bodies with this music. I mean, why not? There's a 6-piece band.
Yeah.
If we can't, you know, move people's energy with that, you know.
Well, let's talk about the music. You know, that's the other big portion of this. You know, I mean, it's you know, it could be one thing just to do rounds of japa and without melody or sound, but the melody, the sound, the atmospherics, the rhythm. I mean, you create a very special container. How's the music important to all this? How does it work?
You approach the mantras with deep respect, you know, and I know what I can't really put a real point and say this is how they're composed, because there's many of us who
that I was going to ask. That was my next thing. Is like, how do you find your melodies?
Yeah. Well. Again, you know, in a way, Deva's the sounding board, because she doesn't like the melody, we don't sing it, we don't play it. So, you know, Manoj is very conscious of Deva's range, and he composes now. And, you know, and Joby's come into the fold. He's a really good musician. You know, they'll be composing soon, the guys in the band. But, you know, it's so delicate, because I've heard so many people singing mantras since we started doing it back in in 1998, I think, when the Essence was released. And now, I hear people, I listen to that, and to be honest, quite often, it sounds forced, the melodies and the mantras, but I never feel that with us. And I'm not saying it in any pretentious kind of way. I just there's something about the way, I think it's because the mantras were in her blood. They were when she was conceived. The Gayatri mantra was chanted all through the pregnancy to her. So that's not nothing. And then to keep it in your body as school. And there's something that went in Deva, I feel, now I know her for so long, that because she's not really interested in music. She's not really, like, she would tell you, she doesn't feel like a musician now.
And it's just something in the West that, and especially, these days, I don't, certainly, it's not an attitude of, cynicism or anything like that, but we can all look around, and we're facing some challenging predicaments right now, right, as a culture, as a species. And I don't know, part of the way through it is we have to find some way to heal, right? Because there's obviously like a lot of trauma being induced, creating other trauma, hurt people, and obviously there's something going on here that we're just missing, and I think it's coming from trauma or
it's coming from overcrowding also. Just so many of us in the cage,
on the raft.
There's so many of us in the cage or on the raft. And just so we're rubbing up against each other more. When there wasn't so many, you wouldn't rub up against people so often. But now we're everywhere you see there's conflict, because there's so many of us. And so interesting.
So where does that lead you with so many of us that we have to figure out how to get along?
Well, I guess so. I read somewhere, that I think it was Tibetan, was some Tibetan great thing, and they, I understood, I think it was that guy, what was his name, Andrew...
Harvey? No.
Andrew, is that not Andrew Harvey? Anyway, it doesn't matter. They were talking about Tibetan scriptures and how enlightenment came through the immersion into the scripture that never stops, and then at the end of, when the enlightenment comes at the end of that, and then I'm thinking, wait a minute, enlightenment comes at the end, and then when you're enlightened, you dance and you sing. Let's just cut to the chase, man.
Right.
Let's dance and sing, and let's find a way to lift our voices in a way that is not in any way separatist. And it's all inclusive, and that's the thing with the mantras. Yeah. That's when I've had some traditional kind of guru people come in and saying, have you done the practice, the Gayatri practice? Saying, no, but I know that it's good, and I don't need to be told. Yeah, right. I'm the guy who's experiencing it. Thank you for spending all your life practicing or doing whatever you do. But I feel that's the key for me, and it's deep fun. We don't call our concerts shows. We don't see it as a performance or entertainment. It's too important for that. It's life and death to me, and in a way for both of us, it's what we live. We don't go out for a vacation from this. This is it, and so when we come together, that's our tantric moment. Well, that's another tantric moment, and that's where that's how it works. That's how it goes.
Well, and you just said something really, really interesting, which is, you've had some, maybe gurus or leaders of a specific tradition or lineage come and you're not doing it right. You haven't been initiated in this, you're not doing this right. But ultimately it's about where your heart's at.
The intention.
Right? It's the intention. Yeah. And and I've seen just by knowing you guys and watching you operate in the world that you're one of the few people I know who manages to, you can dance in different spiritual traditions without any hang up about it, right? And that is just so important, I think, right? Is that this is accessible to all. This isn't, you don't have to be initiated. I mean, if you found a guru, you guys knew Osho in the body, that's great, but it's not a requirement.
It's actually through Osho how we learned, because he introduced us, brought us close to so many religious and spiritual paths and lineages, and he'd spend days and days, discourse series on Sufism and on Zen and on Vipassana and on Nietzsche and on Buddha and on Tantra and Tao and Jesus, everything, literally everything. And there's 350 books of Osho where he speaks on every single religious in depth,
Yeah.
And that's why I love this. That's why I said it's a red thread, because that's where that universality comes in, where it's all included, and we honor each path, because every path is.
So you would not say, or would you say or not say that he was a Hindu guru?
Oh, no, absolutely not.
Okay. Osho.
Oh,
Yeah.
no, there was nothing Hindu about Osho. No, and in a way, that's why I also, I grew up with the mantras. My father studied Sanskrit. He could read and write it.
Oh, wow.
He was so immersed into also studying it, and I never studied it. And then I went to Osho when I was 11 years old. I found Osho as my guru when I was 11, and Osho was not a traditionalist, and there were no mantras really in our practices there, unless you were Indian and you wanted to bring that there, but it wasn't like so much part of, so I actually didn't have a real I'm not steeped in Hinduism. When I talk to our ISKCON friends, Janavi, or who grew up there, they have it in their blood. They know all the stories and all the deities, and I actually don't. And I felt many years kind of embarrassed that I didn't, and I felt like, but somehow that seems to be not my way to approach the mantras. It's a very direct, very innocent, and experiential approach, and a respect, of course, deep respect.
Yeah.
And but that's why I can chant, Art Gore, which is a Sikh mantra, and then I can chant Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, right.
And it feels to me, and still I choose, of course I choose what I resonate with, and also it seems to be certain times, like it was a long time before I chanted Hare Krishna. I didn't feel it before,
Did your friendship with Shyam Das bring you closer to Krishna?
Not to Hare Krishna, because that's such an ISKCON. No, but to Krishna, totally.
Yeah.
Shyam Das, totally. I didn't get Krishna before Shyam Das.
Oh,
I didn't
really?
I totally didn't.
Huh.
And then we went to Vrindavan. We went straight to the birthplace of Krishna and hung out with him there, and there we really got the initiation.
Yeah. I was fortunate enough and feel so blessed now just to have one day or a day and a half with him in Vrindavan and Braj, and it was life-changing, right?
Yeah.
I mean, his sense of playfulness around it, like that idea. I mean, it didn't introduced me to Krishna, but it really it changed my relationship with the concept of the Leela, you know, of making into this like the Rasa Leela, just this dance of this playfulness. And he was just always just like this joyful old wise man, just singing and dancing his way through Vrindavan, right? Extraordinary. But you know, that being said, you know, going to holy places, right? I mean, they have a special resonance, don't they?
Yeah, I don't know. I feel pretty happy everywhere I go.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I don't know, is it because I know this is supposed to be a holy place, you know, but like I can't really, I'm really not so esoteric, and I'm really not so sensitive for these kind of subtle energies. So I just, but I do feel happy wherever I am.
Well,
I think my holy place, that's my power spot, is with 10.
And a little altar, and here we are, right? And you know, the thought that I wanted to kind of close with is, you know, I got off on a tangent, but we did talk about, you know, no matter what side of the fence you're on, we can look around and go, okay, we've got some pretty serious problems to deal with here as a species, not just as a culture. And juxtaposing spiritual practice or mantra, whatever you want to call it, on top of that, what do you think is something everybody can do if somebody's coming to you and say, I want to get into mantra on a daily basis? Where would you start?
Always start with an Om.
Always start.
You know, Om. Om. 2 sounds, O and M, and a breath in between, and 3 times. You know, for example, when you wake up, 3 times Om. You know, it's going to make a huge difference. You know, or we like to chant Om Shanti Shanti before food. You know, just that breath, that out breath where we come back. You know, it doesn't take any time, and it really totally transforms. So Om is, I think we all should have the Om readily in our pockets.
I think you know, you have to make a commitment. You have to. What the mantras do is they encourage and seduce us into making a commitment. If you don't make a commitment in your life to something, you know, and so in a way, the mantras offer themselves in that way. Like I was saying earlier, okay, there's a mantra for this and that. First thing is, how do I find this and that mantra? Where do I go? You know, like once you had to go to India, you had to sit with the guru, and maybe one day he'd whisper your mantra to you. You know, that's how it was. Mm-hmm. But now you can Google your mantra. So in one way, that gives you the responsibility, and it gives you the chance to be your own guru. And so you can look, and you can. So where do you go? See, that's the first step. And the only way you make that step into anything spiritual is because you want to. There's some impetus that's calling you. Something's not right. You want to move in certain ways. So there are many different ways. But the mantras is the way with the mantras is you're going to use your voice. You know, so that's one thing, and that means you're going to be breathing. You're going to be aware of your breath. And you're going to chant this mantra for 108 cycles. So that's your commitment. Every night before you go to sleep, you're going to spend 10-15 minutes chanting your mantra. It's no big deal, but try and do it. You know, and that's what I feel with the mantras. It's like, or like Deva say, Om. Okay, 3 Oms before you go to bed. You know. But if you want to go deeper into it, then we've done all this kind of stuff where people can go, okay, we've made a CD called Mantras for Precarious Times, another one called Mantras for Life, and they're just chanted, no music, 108 cycles. So the point of that, the people loved it because they could use it as a tool. They got the explanation, they knew what this mantra was for. Oh, this one resonates with me. So I put it in the CD player, and every night for 21 days, I'm going to chant with Deva, just me and Deva, And we found that it's really helpful. People have, that's part of how the our Sangha has grown. It's with the mantras, people experimenting with them, finding out what they do. What do they do? Oh, I love Deva and Miten, and we sing together, and it's joyful, But what makes me feel this good? It's not just the music or the gathering. It's something, the material that you're involved with. The key is there, and then it's up to you. You can sing the mantras, or you can commit to something in your life so that you get an experience.
Yeah, right, and. It's something you can take with you anywhere.
Yeah, and you can you don't even need to articulate it. I've chanted mantras at night, so not waking Deva up, just silently, but chanting 108 cycles. If I'm in anxiety, or if I can't sleep or something, then that chills me out. It chills me back into, oh God, gratitude,
And there's a sense that, as you were just explaining this, it just made me think of something about the role technology can sort of play in this, and bringing the Sangha together around. I mean, you were saying you had, how many did you say, 100,000 people chanting Gayatri over Facebook, was it, or something like that? Yeah. Live. Live, right. And I mean, talk about an exercise for precarious times. I mean, that is super, super beautiful. That's a beautiful experience, right?
Yeah.
And one of the ways where technology can really bring our Sangha together, right?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's it. That's when I hit 50 minutes, that's the cut-off time. Thank you, guys.
So beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Zach.
Yeah.